and welcome. My name is Petra Schulte and I'm a nutrition educator, and I'm so delighted to be your host today for session 3 of Eat Smart, Live Strong. So in the first session we talked about how important it is to add 1.5 cups of fruits and 2 cups of vegetables every day to your menu, and how to add 30 minutes of physical activity most days. And you set up some goals for yourself for physical activity and also to add more fruits and vegetables. In the second session, we talked about the challenges that can occur when we want to do the healthy lifestyle choices. So there are challenges that we face, and then we came up with some solutions. And today we are going to talk about how to make classics better. So before we do that, let's review why fruits and vegetables are so helpful. For one thing, it gives more vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants, and fiber. Fiber helps you be regular, and all these fruits and vegetables and legumes too, they help prevent chronic diseases, or they delay chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, and obesity. Because so many of us are plagued by those. So let's look at how we can make classics better. And I like to start with burgers. Burgers are one of my favorite, and so I have a tray here for you of ingredients that we could add to burgers. For one thing, we could start with a bean burger. This one is frozen, or you can make your own with a can of beans and adding sweet potatoes and spices. But these bean burgers are very cheap. Or you can do your regular burger, maybe lower fat turkey burger or regular beef burger. But you might want to try one of these bean burgers, because often it's what you put on top of it that is so tasty. So we have tomatoes. We can slice some tomatoes and put them on the burger. We can add some lettuce. Here is some romaine lettuce from my garden. Look at this speckled romaine, how beautiful that looks. And it is super tasty. We could slice up some onions and of course pickles. Pickles are a great addition to burgers. It might be also really nice to add some cucumber slices, either on the burger or on the side. And that's kind of what we're looking at. We can add things to our favorite classics, or we can put side dishes on there, or later on we'll also look at some desserts, and especially fruit is a great dessert to add. So a few other things for the burgers could be what I like. I have edible flowers in my garden, like a calendula flower, or this is borage flowers. Or you can use them for decoration. That's really fun. And then if you're still hungry, what about a side of a nice corn on the cob? You can either eat it raw, or you can steam it or put it on the grill. All right, so that's for the burger. You got some ideas for that? So I'm going to move this tray over now. And let's look at our next classic. And the next one is chili. Well, how about chili? For one thing, you could start by starting chili from scratch and use chili beans. Like, all you would do with these chili beans, you add some water and then let them soak overnight. And then the next day, you can cook them either in a pressure cooker or in a regular pot. And it's a cheap way to get a very healthy classic. So you can use the beans, chili beans. But if you have a meat chili dish, what fruits or vegetables could you add? So I have tomatoes, chopped tomatoes would be great. How about some onions, diced onions, garlic for spice, and one of my favorites are sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, says that sweet potatoes are one of the healthier foods to eat because it has a lot of beta carotene, the precursor of vitamin A. And then you could top off your chili with some cilantro or chives or even parsley. All right, that's for the chili. I'll put that aside. So next I have baked potato. So here I have a whole sack of potatoes. Of course, you can also use the big russet potatoes. And one thing that always comes to my mind, do I have some beans? And you could put your favorite beans on top, like just take a can of beans, heat them up, and put them on top of your baked potato. You could also, when you bake potatoes, how about adding some cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower or Brussels sprouts or broccoli. And I also love to roast beets. Like this is a really nice beet. You can roast some onions too. And you can top the baked potato after you put the beans on top. You can add some salsa, either freshly made or from a jar. And how about some delicious chives? If you have some in the garden, or if somebody gave some to you, or if you buy some. And for a healthy fat that has less saturated fat but more monounsaturated fat, you could use avocado. That's definitely one of my favorite, and it makes it nice and creamy. So that's for the baked potato. I'll put that tray aside. And next we have, how about some meatless spaghetti? First of all, certainly you can buy the enriched spaghetti, but what if you use whole grain spaghetti? That would give you more fiber, more vitamins, more minerals, and healthier fats because you have the whole grain. Another option nowadays is like lentil spaghettis or black bean spaghettis, red rice macaroon, or another red lentils. So there's so many ways of eating more legumes by veering off from the regular enriched wheat flour and adding more whole grains or legumes. Legumes have the most fiber, so I highly recommend it. So now that we start with our spaghetti, what could we add to our meatless spaghetti sauce? Or maybe you add some meat if you really like to do that. Well, for one thing, you could you start with a marinara sauce, so you can have some chopped tomatoes. I like adding some bell peppers. They give it a really nice flavor. You can either cook them in the sauce or chop them up. They have a lot of vitamin C, but vitamin C, by cooking, you lose quite a bit. So you could just add some chopped bell peppers on top afterwards. Right now I have delicious zucchini from my garden, and so often what I do is I just slice big chunks of the zucchini, and then I saute it with just a little bit of water and some spices in a pan, and that's a nice side dish for spaghetti. And of course you can add some veggies like broccoli. You can steam them, steam some broccoli, and that really enhances the meatless spaghetti for you. All right, moving right along, I think you get the idea of how we can make your favorite classic better. We're gonna do macaroni and cheese next. Let's have a look at that. For one thing, I would love to encourage you. Of course, often it's a matter of budgeting, and in our session 4, we're going to talk about how we can add more fruits and vegetables on a limited budget. But if you get a deal on some whole grain shells for macaroni and cheese, you could do some whole grains instead of the enriched wheat flour macaronis, and start out with more fiber and more vitamins and minerals right away. But let's say you have the regular macaroni. What vegetables could you add? If you're an eggplant lover, eggplant, if you chop it up, saute it with some onion in a pan, that really goes well in macaroni and cheese. I love mushrooms, so mushrooms are great. And if you don't have fresh mushrooms, no problem. You can use a can of sliced mushrooms. Another bean would be tofu. You could add some tofu because the macaroni themselves have not as much protein, and plant protein is really easy to digest for your body. So tofu would lend itself, or you can use green peas, like I have some frozen green peas here, or you can use edamame, either frozen or fresh, and they are very high in healthy plant protein. From my garden, I picked some red spinach today, and spinach lends itself to when you're almost done with the macaroni and cheese, you can just kind of chop it up and blend it in, and it kind of dissolves, but you add some wonderful minerals to your dish. All right, so macaroni and cheese. What's next? I have some brown rice and quinoa, and with it a rice cooker. So if you have a rice cooker, and they're relatively cheap, like some you get for $20 or $25, just some really simple one. And you can start out with maybe brown rice instead of white rice, because again, you have more fiber, more vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, antioxidants. You could also use other grains, like here I have a quinoa blend where I have various colored quinoa and some millet in there, and I think some amaranth. And then you can cook it on the rice setting, and then either right at the beginning or halfway through, you can add a can of beans, like maybe kidney beans or your other favorite beans. Rinse them first. Also, right from the get-go, you can chop up some squash and add that. Some onion tastes really good. And then I love adding some frozen vegetables, because in session 2, I mentioned to you one of my challenges is that I live in the country and I don't always go to the store. So having frozen vegetables on hand is really helpful. And then maybe add some beautiful herbs like dill or cilantro or other herbs. I also, when I cook grains, I add some sea vegetables like kombu, because I live near the ocean, so my husband and I harvest some seaweed, and that gives you lots of minerals, especially calcium. Moving right along, let me move this tray further over here. Let's look at some favorite classic breakfast. Oatmeal. Who doesn't like oatmeal? And if you don't, there's a good reason to try different things to make it really delicious. So I have whole oats here. They're called oat groats. And especially if you have diabetes or if you want to prevent diabetes, the less chopped up or rolled up the oats are, the better, because it slows down the absorption of sugar into your bloodstream. So I have oat groats that I cook in my rice cooker. You could also use barley. Barley has a low glycemic index. Or maybe buckwheat. Buckwheat cooks in a very short time. It's actually not a real grain, it's a pseudo grain. So you can cook the oatmeal in your rice cooker, or you can soak it, especially rolled oats, overnight, and then you can just cook them for like maybe just a few minutes, or eat them without cooking them by soaking them. You can also use oats in your slow cooker. You can do overnight oatmeal. That's a delicious recipe because you just put it on low, and in the morning you wake up, especially if you have cinnamon and other spices in there, and your whole house smells of that delicious oatmeal. And I like to, especially for the overnight oatmeal, the slow cook oatmeal, I like to add some dried apples and some other dried fruit like dates or prunes or apricots. And then I will add the following things. I always add some flax meal because that gives you healthy omega-3 fatty acids. That's really good for brain function. And then I eat fruits in season. So right now, nectarines are just starting to get in season, so nectarines are great. Grapes are wonderful. You could even freeze your grapes and add them. They give it a special crunch. I have a few kiwis left over from storage. They are very rich in vitamin C. Then the mango or frozen mango, you can often get 4 pounds of frozen mango relatively cheap. And one of my favorite is blueberries or raspberries from my garden where I just pick them. But you can use cans of fruit too, like pineapple, sliced pineapple. Just make sure that you use it in juice, natural juice with no added sugar. And some oatmeal also it tastes really good to add some pumpkin puree. So around fall, you can easily get pumpkin puree and add that to your oatmeal, or put it in your muffins. Pumpkin muffins with raisins are wonderful to eat. All right, I might be running out of space now, but I can scoot it over here. I would love to talk a little bit about soup with you, because especially in the winter when you want something really warm. And I am a very busy person, so I take shortcuts. So often I start out with a can of soup. So I have, one of my favorite is lentil soup, and it's more low sodium, so that helps reduce the sodium content in my diet. But what vegetables could I add to, let's say, my lentil soup, or whichever soup you choose to have or you got a deal on? Well, for one thing, one of the most powerful vegetables is kale. And we grow a lot of it in our garden. Kale has so many vitamins and nutrients, and it's very nutrient-dense food and low in calories. And that's one thing, especially with vegetables. 1 pound of vegetables only gives you 100 calories. So definitely you want to focus on getting your calories from especially legumes and whole grains. And then fruit give you more calories, 300 per pound. And the vegetables are especially good for minerals, and fruit especially for vitamins. But what about some frozen edamame? Then you can add some more protein, or some carrots, some onion, and spices are a great way to add more antioxidants and phytochemicals to your diet. And if you have some fresh herbs in your garden, like I have oregano and thyme, or you buy maybe some ginger, that spices things up really nicely. So one last thing I want to mention to you is the following. No matter what season it is, cabbage, cabbage, cabbage. You can cook it, you can shred it and use it raw and make a cabbage salad. And using different colors is helpful, especially the darker the better, because there are stronger phytochemicals in there. You can make you can slice up jicama and sticks and put some cayenne pepper and some lime juice on it as a side dish. You can munch on, I have these frozen, on some frozen edamame for a snack. They're high in protein, they're delicious, and give you lots of fiber for regularity. And for creating a healthy microbiome in your body. You probably have heard how important our microbiome is. And fiber is one of the most important key factors to having a healthy microbiome. And that's why legumes like beans, lentils, and dried peas are so helpful, but also a plethora of fruits and vegetables. So having a lot of variety in your diet is helpful. So I hope you enjoyed this excursion of how we can add more fruits and vegetables into your diet. And next time in session 4, we are going to look at how we can do it on a limited budget. I'm your host, Petra Schulte, nutrition educator. I'm so delighted you joined me today. See you in session 4.